Hey on the channel, let's return to the Kyle Peterson Top 5 with another Halloween-themed Top 5. And today, we're counting down my Top 5 horror icons of all time.
And the spirit of Ultimate Warrior will run forever!
Welcome everyone, Kyle here, and welcome back to the channel for another edition of the Kyle Peterson Top 5, a Thursday tradition here on this very YouTube channel, as every single Thursday we're counting down my top 5 and occasionally top 10 favorites of something. In today's video, we're out there again talking horror-themed type stuff for the Halloween spooky season, and today we're talking my top 5 horror villains of all time. Now, I will say this does not count Universal monsters. I guess you'd want to say this counts 70s till now, I guess is what we would say about this one. And of course, there's tons of people to choose from. Just listing them off. You got the Art the Clowns of the world. You got Pumpkinhead. You got Freddy. You got Leatherface. You got Jason. You got Michael Myers. You got Otis and Captain Spaulding from House of Thousand Corpses. There's tons of different characters from different movies. Tons of different properties. You got newer things like Hatchet. You got things like Mike Myers that goes all the way back to the 70s, of course, with Halloween. So there's a lot to choose from horror icons. And the horror icons of before that, you're thinking Hammer and Universal monsters is what you're thinking of before. So it's really a new generation, more of my generation compared to my dad's generation for just keeping track there. But a lot of different great characters, a lot of different horror icons. Some good, some bad, some ugly, and that's the beauty of horror. There's always something special or not special about a different character. And we all seemingly have our favorites. And some of those heavy hitters will be on my list, of course. Of course, a kid growing up in the 80s, you knew who those big-time players were. And at the very end, and when we get to number 1, I'll give some honorable mentions and maybe some of my thoughts about them as well. But as usual with these top 5 and top 10 lists, I want to hear your list. I want it in the comments down below. Put them in order. That's the hard part. But that's also the really fun part. So without further ado, let's dive into it. Let's take a look at my top 5 horror villains of all time. All right, we kick off the countdown, of course, at number 5. And number 5 for me is a bit of a sleeper, maybe. I don't know if you can call him a sleeper anymore. As of last week, as I'm filming this, his new movie, Terrifier 3, is the #1 movie in the United States. So quite the, going all the way back to All Hallows Eve, to Terrifier 1, to Terrifier 2, now to Terrifier 3. Art the Clown, quite the trajectory, quite the push in the horror movie world, I guess we'll call it there. Now, this could have some recency bias, and as I said, we're going basically from the late 70s all the way till now, and Art the Clown isn't as popular, isn't as well known, of course, as the Freddys, the Jasons, things like that, but man, he has made a push as of late, and you ask kids right now in elementary and junior high, that's the buzz guy. It's not Jason Voorhees anymore, it is Art the Clown, and I've enjoyed Art the Clown all the way back to All Hallows Eve. There's something about a clown, going back to one of the greatest clowns of all time, Captain Spaulding, there's something creepy about a clown, especially Art the Clown, and if you've seen the movies, you know fully well how that goes. And of course, David Howard Thornton, I believe that's the guy's name, I met him a year ago, actually about a year to the day, and he has done a fabulous job with the Art the Clown character. It is truly his masterpiece. He's going to have more movies in the future. Sounds like we might get Terrifier 4 and possibly Terrifier 5, so that'll cement the legacy even more. But a lot of people are scared of clowns. I'm not scared of clowns. However, these clowns, this clown, in Art the Clown's case, absolutely amazing with the different facial expressions and that, which really sells the character. If it just was a stoic version of clown, I don't think we would talk about Art the Clown on this list. But all the emotion out of the face, all of that kind of stuff, really propels him, and like I said, could be a little bit of recency bias maybe, but he jumped into my countdown just barely at number 5. Next up, we're at the number 4 spot in our countdown here, and number 4 was a one that I watched for the first time on VHS when I was a kid, still holds up to this day, and is still a very popular performer in this household, especially as my daughter, this is her favorite character of all time. Who are we talking about at number 4? Well, we're talking about Chucky. Now, Chucky He's his own little world, his own universe. He's had TV shows, he's had movie after movie. There's just something about Chucky, something comforting about Chucky, really, at the end of the day. And we talked about clowns a little bit, and there's a lot of people that are creeped out by dolls, especially the old school robotic Teddy Ruxpin style dolls of the 80s. So playing on that, turning him into a demonic kind of character, and then all kinds of wisecracking jokes and all kinds of adventures ever since. And it sounds like there's going to be a Chucky movie, another Chucky movie, picking up where the series left off. So there's still more Chucky to be out there for my daughter Emma and myself to enjoy. And I think a lot of my enjoyment for Chucky, I've liked him since I was a little kid, like I said, but a lot of it came back with my daughter, who literally lived about a year of her life in a Chucky outfit, which was quite crazy, going to restaurants and things like that. It was a lot of fun too. I wish she'd get back in that outfit, but maybe one last time. Maybe we'll see if Chucky will ride again one last time. We'll see what happens there. But love Chucky. My daughter loves Chucky. It's something we enjoy together. It's a bond we have together, which solidifies Chucky as a part of this list at number 4. We've reached the number 3 spot on the countdown. You got your list together. Put it in the comments down below. You guys know the drill by now. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel, as I always do say. But number 3, we're going to one of the all-time greats, The Shape, as he's known in some circles. We're going to Halloween's own Mike Myers. Michael Myers, of course. I call him Mike, though. Mike Myers, just an unstoppable force. And there's always that parallel between him and Jason Voorhees right here. However, I do put the nod above Jason Voorhees. So spoiler alert, Jason Voorhees not in this top 5. I'm going to tell you right now. A lot of people put them there. Jason's just an unstoppable killer. Well, Michael Myers is as well, but you got that Donald Pleasance factor. You got the family factor. There seems to be a more purpose, where Jason's just there to kill people. That's what it feels like. He had a little bit of purpose, I guess, early on, and we, of course, know the whole story of Jason all the time. I like Jason. I love the Friday the 13th movies, but I feel like there's not the story that there is with Mike Myers and some of the other ones on this list here. So Jason, definitely worth watching, but if you compare him to Michael Myers wins for me. He's just unstoppable, a lot like Jason, but there's a story to him, and there's a lot of good stuff. And I don't know about you guys, I really enjoyed some of the recent movies. The last one, not so good, but the one before that was absolutely amazing. My daughters and I went to that. We really enjoyed that movie. I'm here for Michael Myers. I'm hoping he gets back on track with the next movie. We'll see when that'll be. A lot of these properties say, oh, no, we're done, but then they always come back. They always come back, as we say. But Michael Myers from Halloween coming in at number 3. Towards the end of the countdown, once again, we're at number 2 now, and number 2 is really the one of the old playground back in the day, in the 80s and 90s when we talked about these. And if you would have made me do this list back in the 80s and 90s, who would have been number 1? Well, it would have been Freddy Krueger. That's who comes in at number 2 for me. Something about Freddy being the wisecracking jokester, coming in your dreams, which, of course, as you're a kid, a lot of people have nightmares. A lot of people have bad dreams. I never really had that, but we had friends. We all had friends, people that had nightmares and stuff, people that were scared of the boogeyman. And a lot of people were scared to death of Freddy Krueger. Of course, the charred face, all that going on. But then you had the sweatshirt. You had the meat cleaver glove, the hat. There was so much added to Freddy Krueger, which made him just extra cool, especially if you were a kid of the 80s and 90s. Everybody liked Freddy Krueger. Everybody enjoyed Freddy Krueger. People had his poster on their wall. He went along with Rockin' with Dokken. Of course, we all loved Dokken back in the day, and the Dream Warriors. There was a lot to like about Freddy, and myself, as a kid, I wanted to be Freddy Krueger for Halloween so bad. And there was a lot of Halloween costumes for Freddy Krueger, if you remember at that time. But there was, bare minimum mask you could get at Walmart, for example. But then there was the next level Freddy Krueger stuff. And I remember begging my dad, and he finally said, okay, if we're going to spend all this money on this primo Freddy Krueger costume, guess what? That's the last costume I ever buy you. You're going to have to be Freddy Krueger every single year. And I said, I agree, let's shake on it. And we did. And we shook on it, and I was Freddy Krueger for the rest of my life, which wasn't a bad thing. And it was by far the best Freddy Krueger outfit. Most people had the Walmart ones. I had that next level one that was really nice at the extra special costume shop, or whatever you want to call it. And I was Freddy Krueger from then on. So personally, I was stuck as Freddy Krueger whether I liked it or not the rest of my time trick-or-treating. But I wouldn't change a thing because I loved that costume. I loved Freddy Krueger as a kid, and it worked out for me. And that's why he's number 2. Can you believe it? Should have been number 1, but just got squeaked out. Who's number 1? Stay tuned. All right, we're down to the number 1 selection. Who is my number 1 horror villain of all time? Once again, put your list in the comments down below. But as I said, Freddy Krueger, if you would have asked me when I was a kid, I would have said, you know what, Freddy, number one, easily number one. And this character probably wouldn't have been in my top 5 because I didn't see this movie till, I want to say I was like a junior or maybe even a senior in high school. Once the remake started hitting, I said, you know what, before I see these remakes, I want to see the original one. And I even saw the second one around that time, which is totally different, but I definitely recommend watching the second version. What are we talking about? We're talking about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. We're talking about my boy, Leatherface. And there was something about Leatherface that had the hallmarks back to Psycho, Alfred Hitchcock, some of the Universal Monster stuff, where you didn't really see the gore. It was all in your head. And that's why I always tell my dad, he's never seen Leatherface. He's never seen Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I think he would like that because he didn't like the stuff in the 80s where they showed people getting killed. He didn't like that. He liked to use his imagination like the Universal Monsters did. And that was one of the cool things about Leatherface in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You had a dusty, Texas town. You had a deep cut, deep in the woods, or I guess not the woods, I don't know, desert, what do you want to call it? Way out there in a creepy old house. You had a weird family. You had just a grimy scene. You felt like you needed to take a shower. And I can only imagine back in 77, 78 or so, when this movie came out, what people thought. They'd probably never seen anything quite like this ever before. And it definitely held up when I was in high school. Holds up to this date. There's just something about it that just makes your skin crawl. And something about a chainsaw. There's no escaping a chainsaw for sure. But just the imagery of the first one, the building of the story. Obviously, as I said, there's been many movies since. Some really good, some absolutely horrible. But you go back to the original one, there's not much better in the genre if you ask me. So number one of all time for me is my boy, all the way down in Texas, my boy Leatherface. So that's my top 5 list. Once again, interested to hear your top 5 list of horror favorites. Do you love Pumpkinhead? Do you love Hatchet? Do you love The House of a Thousand Corpses? Captain Spaulding, Otis, Rufus Firefly, whoever it may be. There's a lot of good stuff. I know if my dad did this list, he'd just say, you know what, it's Pinhead. That's the only movie he likes of any of these. So Pinhead's another honorable mention there. But we'll be interested to see what happens in the future. Art the Clown, if he continues his success, a whole generation, he could be number one, surpassing a lot of these characters. So it'll be interesting, the ebbs of time, how this will affect these lists going forward. And maybe there's a new horror villain around the corner that could really sweep the nation. You never know what might happen. But there's a lot of cool ones, a lot of good horror movies, a lot of good horror characters. Feel free to shout it out, any of your favorites, in the comments down below as well when you put your list in there. So there it is, my top 5 horror lists of all time. Put yours in the comments. Don't forget to like this video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Turn on the old notification bell. We got videos every single day and then some. We got even more content for you, of course, over there on Patreon. Patreon, best way to support this YouTube channel and all the content it does bring. You can support the channel, pressthees.com, search Kyle Peterson. And don't forget Sir Paul64 on the X, the _Kyle_Peterson on Threads and on Instagram. So for another Kyle Peterson top 5, I'm Kyle. See you guys all real soon.